Okay, so the other things I wanted to chat with you about before we wrap up, Larry, are some of your other some recent articles of yours. There was a piece, Why I Wish We Could Put Chester Arthur and Joe Biden in a Room Together to Talk Infrastructure Spending. So I'd love to hear about that, particularly about Chester Arthur, because he'd probably be one of the lesser known US presidents, I take it.
Yes, he is one of the lesser known ones. He served less than one full term. He took office as vice president. He took office and became president when James Garfield was assassinated in the middle of 1881. So he served about 3.5 years, the rest of Garfield's term. He's often written off as sort of he was tied to the corrupt Tammany Hall machine in New York and so forth. Or on the good side, historians will remember that he did support civil service reform and made the federal government perhaps a little less corrupt. That was a good thing. But he also, I think, understood the Constitution and appreciated it much more so than Joe Biden does. And so I wrote that article pointing out what Arthur's view on infrastructure spending was compared to Joe Biden's. In America, we just recently went through a national discussion and a bill passed, supposedly bipartisan, I guess it was, for massive, almost $2 trillion in infrastructure spending. An equivalent bill was called the Rivers and Harbor Act, or Rivers and Harbors, and Arthur vetoed it. And in his veto, he raised some great objections, all of which apply to the bill that Biden recently signed. He said, hey, you guys, this is way too much. There's no way that a government of our size can know where all this money is going to go. And it looks like just a small portion of it is even earmarked for infrastructure anyway. There's a lot of pork barrel stuff in here. Quit doing this, loading our bills with all this other nonsense. That's what Joe Biden should have said about the recent infrastructure bill, but of course he was all for it from the start. I think about 10% was really aimed at infrastructure. The rest is pork barrel and progressive agenda stuff. So yeah, I would like to have put Joe Biden and Chester Arthur in the same room and say, Chester, go at it. Tell this guy what infrastructure really is and why it's so wasteful to spend so much on it.
Right. Okay. At the same time, would you say that there is an issue with infrastructure in the US, with the quality of infrastructure? This is something I chatted with Darren Nelson about in a previous episode, and Darren's view as well. We need to get the private sector more involved in it, public-private partnerships, perhaps. Do you have any thoughts on that, Larry?
Yeah.
Do you actually have any? What is the quality of infrastructure like? I mean, is there a problem to solve, and how would you go about it?
Well, with infrastructure, I think there has always been some measure of problem, because government has sort of assumed from the start that this is a legitimate province of government. And once you do that, well, then you have to at least expect that they'll keep it up and do it right and keep an eye on it and repair it when it falls apart. But politicians are, they come and go. And in the meantime, they're more interested typically in the flash in the pan. They show up to cut the ribbon at the start of a bridge that's being built. But once it's built, it's no longer politically sexy to stand around and keep an eye on it in case it collapses. Because they figure, well, if that happens, it'll be long after I'm gone, so why should I care? So you do end up with politicians putting more focus on the construction of the stuff and less on its repair and maintenance. That's where you can get a better or a bigger bang for your dollars, or if you will, by writing contracts with the private sector that require ongoing maintenance and inspection and so forth. I wouldn't want the government, with its own employees and its own infrastructure monopoly, actually becoming a bridge builder. They don't know about bridges. That's best done by the private sector. They should be contracting with private sector providers to do it, and then monitor the contracts and put all the provisions in those contracts that would require proper maintenance.